Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive.
Hey there.
This is where we take the sources you send us, could be articles, notes, bits of research, and we dive deep.
We pull out the key stuff, the important insights, kind of give you the essence without you having to wade through it all.
Exactly. Your shortcut to getting the core of it. And today, oh boy, we're tackling a big one.
The search for purpose. It's pretty timeless, isn't it?
Absolutely. Our source material is basically an analysis looking at parts of Ecclesiastes chapter 2, specifically King Solomon's big experiments, trying to find meaning, satisfaction.
Yeah, what really lasts. So our mission, really, is to unpack what this analysis says Solomon tried and what didn't work out in terms of lasting purpose.
And spoiler alert,
Yeah,
he tried a lot.
he really did. And then what conclusion does he actually land on? It's maybe not what you'd expect.
Right, so imagine King Solomon. This is a guy with, well, practically everything. Immense wealth, power, supposedly incredible wisdom.
He had the means to chase after pretty much anything humans pursue.
Right.
To the absolute limit.
And that's what this analysis suggests he did.
Right.
He didn't just theorize, he put life itself to the test.
Yeah.
It actually brings lasting purpose.
Like real-world experiments, but on a massive royal scale. He really threw himself into it.
Okay, so let's dig into experiment number 1, according to this source. Pleasure. Hedonism.
Right. Ecclesiastes 2, verses 1 to 3, he says something like, I'm going to test myself with pleasure. Enjoy the good things.
Sounds like a plan some people might still try today, huh?
Yeah, but the analysis points out it didn't take long for him to see through it. He called it pointless.
Pretty blunt. He even said laughter is stupid and asked about pleasure. What's the use of it?
Ouch. That emptiness after the party's over, maybe.
Right, must be. And the text says he even, chased foolishness, wine is mentioned. But here's the interesting bit. His wisdom was still there, guiding him.
So it wasn't just mindless partying. He was still searching.
Exactly. He was trying to figure out what was the best thing for people to do in their short lives. Even in the foolishness, there was this underlying quest.
And the source connects this right to the present day, doesn't it?
Yeah, it notes how many people kind of live to party, chasing the next high.
But often, the source suggests it's just covering up something deeper. Pain, emptiness, whatever.
Solomon, with all his resources, his wisdom kept nagging him, saying, there's got to be more than just this fleeting fun.
Which led him straight into experiment 2, right?
Yeah, materialism,
Yeah.
getting stuff, acquiring things. Verses 4 through 9 describe him working on a grand scale.
And that's putting it mildly. Palaces, vineyards, gardens, parks, pools.
Slaves, herds, flocks, huge amounts, silver, gold, the wealth of kings and provinces.
Singers, concubines. I mean, everything the world's associated with success and pleasure back then.
He grew great, it says, bigger than anyone before him in Jerusalem. And again, his wisdom stayed with him. He was fully aware.
But all that stuff,
Ah,
it still wasn't the answer. He couldn't shake that feeling, that gnawing realization.
and the analysis here has a really sharp point about the psychology of wealth. It suggests that chasing riches often locks you into comparing yourself to others.
Right. So you never feel like you have enough because there's always someone with more.
Think about it. If most is the goal, only one person can actually win that game.
Everyone else is, by definition, falling short on that specific measure, even if they're incredibly rich.
It's a system built for dissatisfaction almost.
That's a sobering thought.
So, okay, he's done the pleasure thing. He's done the massive accumulation thing. What's the verdict? Verses 10 and 11.
He says he didn't deny himself anything, any pleasure, anything his eyes wanted. He even found some satisfaction in the work itself, like that was his reward for the effort.
And it's a big but. When he stepped back and looked at everything he'd built, all his accomplishments.
The conclusion was just stark.
All
meaningless and feeding on wind. Nothing truly gained under the sun.
feeding on wind.
Yeah.
That's such a powerful image, like grasping at air.
Yeah, no substance, nothing you can hold on to that lasts.
The source really pushes on this, what's it all worth in the end? Solomon had it all, the world's definition of success, but he saw it added up to nothing permanent.
He felt entitled because he worked so hard for it, sure. But he knew he couldn't take it with him. Death changes the equation.
And that's where the source brings in that idea of storing treasures in heaven, right?
Yeah.
From Matthew's gospel.
Exactly. It shifts the focus.
Yeah.
What has ultimate worth beyond what you lose when you die?
Okay, so pleasure's out, possessions are out. What about intellectual pursuits? Experiment 3. Wisdom and knowledge, verses 12 to 16.
Right. He decides to take a closer look. Compare wisdom with stupidity, foolishness. See which one is better.
And his first thought is pretty logical. Wisdom is better than foolishness.
Yeah, he uses that light versus darkness analogy. The wise person sees where they're going. The fool is stumbling in the dark. Makes sense.
But then comes the twist, the gut punch.
Yet the same fate awaits them all. Death.
Boom. That just levels the playing field, doesn't it?
Totally. The analysis points out how much we value education, intelligence, insight. But Solomon realized, wise or foolish, you end up in the same place biologically.
So his thinking was, what's the actual gain from being super wise if you died just like the fool?
And he lands on the same conclusion again. This, too, is pointless.
The source adds that neither the wise nor the fool are remembered for long, really. Generations pass, even famous thinkers fade.
Yeah, eventually forgotten, replaced. So, if that's the end game for earthly legacy, where's the lasting meaning, just in being smart or famous?
It seems like this realization really threw him for a loop, led him to a pretty dark place, actually.
Which brings us to experiment 4, work, ambition, legacy, verses 17 to 23.
His reaction here is intense. He says he came to hate life, hated all his work under the sun. Why? Because it all felt
meaningless and feeding on wind. There it is again.
A big part of this hatred, the text says, was thinking about leaving everything he'd built to someone else, his heir.
And he had zero control over whether that heir would be smart or an idiot.
Right.
Whether they'd cherish it or squander it.
That uncertainty, that lack of control over his own legacy felt pointless and even a great evil to him.
The analysis really draws a parallel here to modern workaholism. People making work their god.
Yeah, constantly thinking about it, building an estate, accumulating wealth.
Do you have to leave behind? And just like Solomon, you don't know what will happen to it. Maybe it gets wasted, like the source mentions with the prodigal son story.
Or maybe not, but you won't know. And the cost. Solomon describes it as a life of pain, constant stress, even sleepless nights.
So his verdict on making work and legacy the ultimate goal.
This too is pointless. Seems like he's running out of options here.
He really does. After trying pleasure, possessions, wisdom, work, all these huge pillars of human striving, what's left?
Well, verses 24 to 26 offer a shift, a different kind of conclusion. He says there's nothing better for a man to do than eat, drink, and enjoy the good that results from his work.
Okay, wait. After all that searching, it comes down to just enjoying daily life. Seems a bit anticlimactic.
But hold on. There's a crucial piece right after that. The source really flags this as the key.
What is it?
He says he also realized that this is from God's hand.
Okay. That changes things.
Big time. So the ability to find simple joy, satisfaction in your food, your drink, the results of your labor, that's not just something you achieve, it's a gift.
A gift from God. That's what the source emphasizes. All good things, including the ability to enjoy them, come from God.
And he gives this ability, according to the source's interpretation, to those who are good from his viewpoint.
The analysis contrasts this sharply, suggesting those it calls lost might be, like, chained to a job, maybe wealthy but still unhappy.
Whereas someone who is good from God's viewpoint, and the source specifically identifies this group as Christians, gets the gift of not just working but actually enjoying it, finding satisfaction in it.
So it's less about what you have or do and more about the capacity to enjoy it, which comes from a divine source.
That seems to be the core idea here. And the source takes it one step further, interpreting this to mean that those who are good from God's perspective will inherit everything in the end.
So the wealthy who aren't in that category, according to this analysis, they're just sort of collecting.
Yeah, accumulating, but still ultimately feeding on wind because they're just gathering it to eventually leave behind. And the source suggests they're leaving it for those who are good from God's viewpoint, the Christians.
Wow. That's quite an interpretation. It completely reframes the idea of wealth and inheritance around a divine plan.
It definitely shifts the focus away from just earthly efforts and outcomes.
Okay, so just before we wrap up, we should mention the source context provided.
Right. This analysis we've been discussing is associated with Heartland Media, LLC.
And the source material itself also mentions information being available about how to be saved and how EFM began.
Good to know. It just gives a bit more background on where this particular interpretation is coming from. So let's try and pull this all together. We dove into Solomon's huge search for meaning.
Yeah, this state-of-the-art ancient experiment in living.
And he found that pleasure, incredible wealth, profound wisdom, even intense work and ambition, when they were just pursued under the sun, meaning, without that connection to God.
They all came up empty. meaningless,
Yeah,
feeding on wind. That phrase just sticks with you.
it really does. But then the analysis highlights his big realization, finding real satisfaction, even just enjoying your day-to-day work and life.
That ability itself is a gift. It comes from God's hands.
Yeah.
It's a totally different way of looking at purpose.
Which leads us to our final thought for you to chew on.
Okay.
If Solomon, a man who arguably achieved the pinnacle of worldly success, riches, wisdom, power, pleasure, if he concluded it was all meaningless when pursued just under the sun,
Yeah.
what does that suggest about where you might need to look, or maybe reorient your search to find purpose and satisfaction that actually lasts?
That definitely takes the search beyond just what we can see and measure in this world, doesn't it? Something to think about.